You guys, they made Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse 2, and we're calling it Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and the next one is Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. We'll get to the titles in a second, but I saw it maybe a couple hours ago, still kind of processing it, so two important things. A, I thought Spider-Verse 1 was great. B, I'm not a humongous Spider-Man fan. I've watched most Spider-Man media, played most of the Spider-Man games. However, he's not my favorite superhero like he is for some people. That being said, this movie is great. Obviously, it's incredible. Everybody's seen the reviews. It's very good. It's beautiful. It's magical. Like, it's crazy that it exists. I mean, and I think I have not seen an animated movie in a while where I haven't at least gone, well, they really went for it with that. Even Lightyear, which I didn't have really strong feelings for, they kind of went for it at some points. But like, looking at Elemental coming up, Ninja Turtles, obviously, you know, Puss in Boots, even stuff a little further back like Luca, it really feels like the animation studios have upped the ante to a point where, like, these movies just look better than they ever did before. And I think we can probably thank Spider-Verse for that to some extent. And I think that's great. And I think Across the Spider-Verse is the best looking one of them. You take it for granted, you know, about maybe 10 minutes in, there's a fight scene. I've seen bits and pieces of it in most of the trailers. And it is, if this was in live action in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would probably go down as the greatest Spider-Man action sequence. And it's just like, not like a throwaway, but it's like, you know, a little thing. It's not the most important one. It's not the most ambitious, coolest, whatever. And it's pretty wild that they did that. Like, there's not a humongous amount of action sequences, but every action sequence is so exciting, so vibrant, and just so kinetic. Everything is happening. Characters are flying through. Like, the first one of these, like, Into the Spider-Verse, you had, like, the action sequences were like Spider-Man learning to web sling, and like Spider-Man, you know, kind of getting in a fight that he didn't quite win. Whereas in this, it's like Spider-Man knows how to do everything, Gwen knows how to do everything, you know, all the other Spider-Men and women know how to do everything. So you just get these absolutely insane action sequences. As far as the story is concerned, I think the story is good. I think it's a little, I'm going to say two, let's call them criticisms. I don't know about criticisms. I feel like criticisms is like me giving, it feels like I'm giving advice, like criticize. I don't know. This is just things that didn't quite work for me. There's a fair amount of exposition in this movie, some of which to the point where I'm like, we did this exposition already. We recap the movie twice. The first one, once in the very beginning, and then about 5 minutes later, they just kind of do it again. And also, throughout the movie, characters are recapping the movie. They're talking about what happened before. So there's that. But then on the other side, there's a lot of characters explaining what the device does and how you use this to get to here. And I understand it is a very complicated movie. I don't blame them for that. And I think what they get out of it is pretty great. There are just some bits that are pretty dense, honestly. They make it as accessible as they can, and they also throw out some crazy comic words that are like, there's one specific one, the big fight, where someone casually kind of mentions like, oh, he's doing this, and I'm like, whoa, we're saying that as a word everybody knows now? It's insane. I think overall, yeah, we'll get to the pacing. Let's do performances. Performance is all great. Everybody from the last one is still good. I'd say the best character for me, the character I most enjoyed, was Spider-Punk, just because it's such a fun character. He's a rebel, and he's just kind of he's not a jerk, but you're like, what's this guy's deal? Everybody likes him, he's cool. He's a very fun character to introduce in this. At the same time, you've got these other characters, Spider-Man of India, Miguel O'Hara, Jessica Drew, and then a couple of others that weren't as marketed, but I think are pretty important, so I'll leave them out of here. But I think, you know, most of the voice cast was good. I think Oscar Isaac has kind of a thankless job here because he was very emotional. He was very engaging, but he's also really mad and, oh, Spider-Man, don't you go take the thing. As opposed to Kaluuya, who does Spider-Punk, who's very kind of silly. Not even silly. Silly's not the right word, but he's got a lot of energy and he's cool. And you walk out of the movie going, wow, he was great. Oscar Isaac was very good. I think every member of the voice cast was solid. Jason Schwartzman, Gideon Graves from Scott Pilgrim, plays the Spot. He was fun. I liked him a lot. I think one of the things his motivation and everything he's doing, I think is it's pretty funny. It's nothing we've never seen before in terms of like exact what he wants, but the way he's getting it and the way they use their powers and the way this character kind of evolves over the course of the movie is pretty entertaining. Like, I was hoping when I saw that first animation, like that first picture that they released a while back of Spot just someone's punching someone else, and it's by accident because the Spot's involved. I was hoping like they could do some cool stuff with portals here. And they have some really cool portal fights where in the beginning, where characters are kind of stumbling through the portals because they're not very good at it. And on the other hand, later, the Spot's crushing it because he knows how to use all this stuff and he's like in control. I also thought the locations were interesting. We didn't spend a ton of time in the different locations. It's kind of a multiverse of madness situation, although I don't think it's quite as bad. Some of the spider locations just aren't that interesting, right? Like Gwen's universe, pretty much the same as Earth, just purple and blue and pink and stuff. Fine, that's good, but like we see Spider-Man that are like the cat Spider-Man, and it's like, what's his universe like? You know, like the 3 Spider-Men from Into the Spider-Verse 1 have more interesting universes than the ones we go to. Well, it's not true, I guess, because we go to Manhattan, the Spider-Man India universe, but like, I guess there were some Spider-Men, like Spider-Punk, where it's like, I want to see what his deal is. What's his universe like? That's probably the coolest looking universe, just in terms of like art style. Because we spent a lot of time in Spider-Hub World, spent a lot of time in regular 1610 Earth. And I'm not saying this needs to be a globe-trotting adventure, but I am saying a lot of the ways the characters were animated were very cool, and part of me wishes we spent more time in the other universe, just seeing them, you know, just seeing what they look like. And I think there's time for that in the future, for sure. I would love it if they made a Spider-Punk show. I hear they're making a Spider-Man Noir show, or at least that's been rumored. And I think you could do the same with the Spider-Punk show. I have not read the recent series that they did, although I have issue 1 because it was a Maria Wolf variant. But I want to get a look at that and get a sense for what Spider-Punk's world was, because I didn't know very much about Spider-Punk. Honestly, I don't know where he came from. I kind of assumed it was a costume in a video game. They were like, this is pretty cool, and then they went from there. I did not realize that he was black when I cast him as like Taron Egerton in one of my videos. So I was like, I don't know, some singer. Anyway, I think the casting's very good. Like, new cast members are good. Animation, web slinging, everything. Like I said, we really are like very lucky that the people doing this have vision, and it makes you a little, not really like upset that MCU Spider-Man doesn't do cool stuff like this, but just a little bit. Like, there's some shots where MCU Spider-Man is like zipping around, and it's like, yes, this is the whole movie. Like, it's insane. I don't know how people make this movie, how human beings made it, as opposed to like deities. The plot's okay. Here's my thing about the plot, and this is my biggest problem with the movie. And I would say, I think other people will have this problem. I don't want to say what it is without giving you a spoiler warning, even though I don't think it's a spoiler. It shouldn't be. But this is my one warning that's like, construction-wise, there's something about the movie I did not really love, and I'm going to say what it is. I don't think it'll spoil the movie for you. And if you've kept up with the movie as like a thing that they've talked about, titles and things like that, you may know where I'm going with this. So, 3, 2, 1, spoiler warning. This movie is a part 1 of 2. Some of the marketing has made that very clear. Some has not. The trailers, you know, like one of the trailers I remember they put out with maybe the first look they had did have part 1 on it. I was like, okay, great. However, that's not the case anymore, because this is just Across the Spider-Verse. The next one is Beyond the Spider-Verse. I think there was a period in the 2010s we did Harry Potter, Hunger Games, you know, Divergent, where every last book was getting split kind of in an arbitrary spot near the middle into 2 movies. And that was never good. So I think the idea of calling your thing part 1, part 2 has been a little bit sour. However, this is 100% part 1. Like, you can make an argument that this is a complete story. And I agree to some extent. Like, you get full arcs you get a full arc for like certain characters. On the other hand, I think it's clear, here's the thing. I'm really enjoying this movie, right? We're getting close to like an hour and a half in. I'm like, wow, this is really kicking. This is moving. This is great. I get to what feels like 2 hours in. I'm like, are we done? Because there's more. There's got to be more. But it's 2 hours. Is this movie 3 hours long? Because we're just getting, this is getting going. And then it comes up, no, actually, this is part 1. It's to be continued. I think that is fine. Obviously, we like Empire Strikes Back, we like Infinity War. Those are the two of those that have done it successfully. If the expectation is that your next movie will pick up exactly where this one left off, then that's what we're dealing with. And in this situation, I think that's what this is. And I'm not saying that that means that the movie is bad. I am saying the pacing is a little bit weird because you're like, it's a lot of setup and even more setup after that, where you would normally be doing second act stuff. We're still kind of in the first act. We're still doing setup stuff. I think it's all important because we're meeting a lot of characters, learning about a lot of concepts. This movie aims to tell a big story, and to do that, you need to do all this table setting. At the same time, you leave the theater going like, man, I wish I could watch that next movie right now. But I don't know if you feel like you got the full, you watched a full movie, a full story, right? Like experienced a full thing. You didn't get that catharsis, beginning, middle, end kind of thing. You can make an ending out of it, but it's not the end. And I wish they called it Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and the next one was Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 Beyond or something like that. I don't know. That part's not good. But like a Part 1 and Part 2 I think would have been fine. If I did not know that this was a Part 1, Part 2, I would maybe be a little bummed. I mean, you have a great time. It's a great movie. But also at the end of the day, you're looking for a complete story and this doesn't quite have it. Again, there's arguments that could be made, that I'm sure people will make, that this is a complete story for this character, but not this character. But I think it ends on something of a cliffhanger, and that just all it means is a lot of the beginning stuff in this movie feels like first act stuff, and then some second act stuff. But there's still a lot more to go. I don't know. I liked it. It was good. I'm just saying, like, leaving the theater, that was my one problem. It's like, this is Empire. We're empiring. To the point where someone else leaving the theater said that too, not to me, but I could hear them saying that. I think this is something some people will think. I think if they had marketed it as Part 1, this would not be an issue. People would be expecting this. And I know expecting it isn't perfect, but like, you want to know. That being said, like, yeah, the movie's great. Soundtrack's okay. It wasn't quite as memorable as the first one. I don't think there was like a What's Up Danger equivalent. I'm sure I'll listen to the soundtrack and see how I feel about it and like if it really sticks with me. So I've not seen Flash yet, which means if it is as good as every living and dead human being alive has said, we could be 3 for 3 in the summer right now. Guardians, Spider-Verse, Flash. Like, and not just 3 good ones, like A+ all around. And that's really impressive. We're really lucky. I think we owe a lot of that to these guys. We owe a lot of it to the writers who write these movies, who deserve respect, deserve to be paid, treated equally, and not equally, but like in a way that is fair. I mean, equal. They deserve to be treated equally too. But you know, they deserve to be compensated fairly. And the animators, who have also always had like kind of a rough deal in Hollywood. I hope that working on these movies is good. I think it's a good experience. I have ideas about what the next one of these is going to be. I'm not going to talk about it here. But I will say my big takeaway is going away. Really enjoyed Spider-Punk. Really enjoyed Spot as a D-lister. Let's say DC or D-lister Spider-Man villain. I think he was a very interesting pick for this, and it worked out super well. Very entertaining. You know, he had enough menace that you were like a little worried about him, and the way he was drawn was pretty cool because he sometimes had like the spots and stuff. Hey, the spots were kind of weird and kind of gross looking, but also there was sometimes you could see like lines, like because he did look like kind of a figureless, you know, like one of those dolls that you pose to get, you know, action for artists, like those things. Yeah, I think this next one's gonna be great. Here's the big question: do I like this one more than last one? Probably not. I think while this one is bolder and does more, I also think what the first one does, it does so well. It is so perfect. And I think this one, we'll see. Because it's half of a movie, kind of. It's half of a story. We haven't seen the end of that story. I'm sure there will be a What's Up Danger moment, but like in this first Spider-Man movie, like Into the Spider-Verse, it happens from transitioning to the second and third act. We haven't done that yet. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really, really cool. It's wild people are going to know these things. It's wild that like certain characters... Alright, let's talk about cameos and stuff. I'm not going to say who it is or what the cameos are. there's a cameo in here that absolutely ruled. I was not expecting it, like, even a little. And there were some that I was expecting. And some that I was like, oh great, they did do that, cool. But there were some others that, like, one of them happened, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. So, you know, you'll know it when you see it. My theater reacted pretty positively to it, and it was also just nice. Like, it's a good thing. It's good that they did it, and I think it's great. I really enjoyed this movie. I want to see it 2 or 3 more, or like 2 or 3 times in a theater. I do think it's a great big theater watch. And yeah, like Guardians 3, this, and Flash, we could be 3 for 3 in terms of great all-timer superhero movies in the same summer. Just lucky us. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.